My name is Cheley. I am a Wialon hosting expert in the development department. Welcome to the webinars for developers. Some of you have already started watching our episodes. Yes, we have launched a series of webinars dedicated specifically to development based on Wialon SDK. Today we are going to talk about remote API method, but later, maybe next video, we will discuss also about JavaScript API. If you joined us first time today, feel free to watch our webinars and Gurtam meetups on our YouTube channel. You can watch here these webinars about SDK topics and also all videos from last meetup season. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the bell button to get notification every time when we upload a new video. The webinars will be useful, first of all, for those who want to understand how to work with Wialon SDK. What is it? How to use it? How start working with it, and so on. We always invite both technical specialists and developers who have just started working with Wialon SDK, as well as other specialists, for example, like business analysts, who give tasks and explain key points to their developers. If you're already working with SDK, maybe some topics will be simple for you and no new. But later we will try to discuss more complex topics, or maybe you can find some special issues which we cover on our webinars. So today we will also talk about some complex topics in Wialon about events method. Before we start, I would like to tell you about the format of today's webinar. The webinar, like previous one, will consist of two parts. In the first part, I will explain that the events method R briefly describes how they work and where are used in Wialon. We also learn about the format of request and how to correctly specify the parameters and some example of their use. The second part, as usual, is more for practice. We will discuss the preferred request format for some special cases and how to extract data from JSON response. And also I will show you some example of simple web app template which uses events method. Don't hesitate, ask questions in our YouTube chat during the webinar. At the end of each part, I will look through the questions and answer them. You can also share the topics or ideas you want to explore and which of them we need to cover in detail next webinars. Let me remind you that in the description below the video, you will find all necessary links, like links to documentation, to video lessons, everything that I mentioned during the webinar. So let's start. Recently, we have released a webinar on data processing method in Wialon. It was held by Oleg Zharkovsky, the Wialon trainers team lead, and Maria Poklonskaya, the business analyst at Gurtam. In the webinar, my colleagues describe in detail how Wialon processes data received from different types of device. I recommended watching this webinar. The link will be in the description below. There you will also find the link to the documentation where the data processing algorithms are described. So now I will briefly tell you what the events method are in general and what part of functionality they cover. All the data coming from devices is sent to Wialon Online, and system immediately processes it and records in the database. The web interface is subscribed to updates via the avail events method, and after it had resolved fresh messages, it uses them, for example, to update units position on the map, or change in sensor values in tooltip, or parameters values in tooltip, etc. The backend also processes incoming messages for various features, for example, to trigger notifications or to assign or remove drivers. Processed messages recorded in database can be stored for request a long time. It depends on specified period in the account settings. I think you know about it. You can always get the messages by sending an API request to database. The backend processes the messages, the saved messages. In other words, it's called like post-process them. For example, the reports functionality is used for this. The system requests messages for a certain period, analyzes it with some algorithm, some of algorithms, and provide result. For example, to define trips in trips table. And in Wialon, there is a mechanism which combines two features: processing data online and saving the result in history, as well as data post-processing or recalculation the result. This mechanism represents the events in Wialon, or in other words, the events methods. Thanks to these methods, Wialon calculates certain types of events of units that are online in the background and records them as result. These events are trips, fillings, fuel thefts, fuel consumption, ignition work, engine hours working, sensors, and countervalues, and speed violations by road restrictions. So these events are available at any time after they have been registered. It allows you to reduce the load during the calculation because, for example, when you execute a report, the data calculation is always performed of an array of messages, even if you execute the same messages from the same period several times. The events methods, or as we call them events, just events, calculate the necessary data in the background just once, register it, and then you can simply request events from history at many times as you like. Also, the advantage of the events methods is that they process only necessary data, like, for example, GPS data for trips, valid sensor values, and register new states, new trips, a changed sensor value, and etc. It provides great speed of the data receiving and processing. In the current Wialon features, we also used events methods. The dashboard in the monitoring system uses the events request to display information. The mobile app also uses the events request to get information about trips, fillings, thefts, ignition working, and sensor values, etc. In the web interface, the sensor values in tooltip is updated by events response. Notifications on fillings and thefts are based on events methods. So let's look through the documentation where these methods are described. Now I will show you our SDK documentation. Events, where you can find the description of events. Yes, I see that you can see my screen. So the events method are described at event sections. Here you can find several 5 requests. Events method types, we can divide it into 2 groups. Method of receiving data online and methods of receiving data over the period of time, history period. So let's look to the methods of receiving data online. As I already said, events are generated in real time based on 6 detectors and messages received from the devices. Events are calculated in the backend, in the background, and it allows to work with them online. So we can get current events which is happening in this moment. For example, current trip of unit. For this, you need to execute the following request: event update units to add or remove unit from the session. Oh, we have some technical issue, as I see. Please wait a minute. We will fix it. It's okay. I hope it's okay now. So let's continue. As I said, events are calculated in the backend, in the background. It allows to work them with online, so you can request the current event, for example, current trips. For this, it needs to execute 2 requests. First, events update units, a request to add unit or remove from the session, and the second one, check updates, events check updates to get to receive changes in the events by units. So let's look at the format of these requests. I will open now the documentation and share my screen. First request which I describe you, it's about events update units. You can see that it has several parameters like mode add to add unit into the session, or remove to remove unit into the session. And parameter units is array of a list of required units. Each element is an object with parameter ID, unit internal ID, and parameter detect. Parameter detect is an object with a list of our required detectors. Trips to get unit trips, LLS to get fuel fillings, fuel theft, and fuel consumption, sensors, sensors values, sensors interval workings, ignition interval workings, counters like GPRS counter, GPRS traffic counter, engine hours counter, and mileage counter, and speedings which detected by road restrictions. You can specify only one detector, for example, only trips, or all, but it's not necessary to list all the detectors. The value for detectors means the sensor ID, or for such detector like trips, counters, and speedings, the value is 0. So below in the documentation, you can find the examples of format for this parameter detect. For example, this parameter means to add all possible kind of events. For this one means to add ignition sensor with ID. It means to add all ignition sensors and all possible sensors which created into unit. This format means that we will get information about sensor ID equal 2 and sensor ID equal 6. So let's take a look at an example how this request is work. I will show you. I will use Swagger Inspector tool. It's a cool tool to execute post request to Wialon. Before we get information online events, we need to log in. So let me first log in, execute token login request, check settings. Now I copy the session seed, the session ID. Okay, and here I have stored example. So first one, we need to add via request events update units, required units. As you see, I add this unit with this one ID, and I will detect trips and sensors. All sensors as I paste value 0. And second unit with this ID, and also I will detect sensors and trips. So let's try to execute. Wait, sorry, I forget to press session ID. Okay, what is it? Something goes wrong. Let's express. Okay, I think I don't use the correct copy of session ID. Let's try to execute again. It seems like correct copy. Okay, let's try execute. Oops. Oh, successful. The system returns as result units 2. So it means that we add into a session to monitor our events for 2 units. Then I need to execute request, check updates. I have some stored tips for this. So just I copy this one. Copy this one. So now I will execute the next method, event check updates, and with params. Params is like only parameter detalization to get required information for about event. Later I will show you in documentation about this parameter. So let's try with this value. Execute. So you can see that we get some information about our units. Real-time information. Let me copy here. It's more good to view. We get information about our two units, first one and second one. And here you can see also array with our list of our detectors, all possible sensors. It's like all possible sensors, all possible trips. For example, now the trips is state 0. It means that unit is parking now. The second for other unit, all information about current state, sensor state, and about trips. The unit is also parking now. Then, if we execute again this request, we will update the new information based on new incoming messages. You can see the parameter m. Let me show you parameter m. For example, in trips, here is possible find parameter m. Yes, we show last messages which unit sends to the system. For then the next execute, we can see that this parameter Unix time has been changed as we get new messages from device, new one, and etc. So you can execute this request, for example, every 2 seconds to get update information, or every 30 seconds, or even every 1 minute. It depends on how often device sends data, and also when you execute this request, it allows to hold a session, as you always execute some requests to Wialon. So you can see that, for example, every second I get some new information, but now I get empty answer. It means that there is no new messages getting from device now, but several seconds going, we get new messages. So let's look to the detalization parameter. Here you can find more about events check updates. You can see that parameters like languages, measure and measure, it's like optional parameter. Detalization is also optional parameter. By default, the default value are described here. Detalization, here you can also find the information about sensors, detectors, which sensor type are used, how the sensor events are calculated, and here we can find the format of JSON response when we define a detalization value. For example, 1 it means like basic JSON. As I add 3, so I add basic JSON and specified detector data with more detailed information, like, for example, total counter for sensors, or, for example, the information about trips like state, GPS mileage in the trip, or average speed, and etc. So all parameters are described in documentation. The next part of group events is methods of receiving data over the period of time, history events. So let's look through these examples. Recently we have explored the combination of event updates units and event check updates to get online data events. For example, when unit is moving at the moment and we count the current trip state. Events which have already been completed, such as finished trips or any event, you can get from the history. Let's take a look at the description in our documentation. This kind of events, we will talk about load events into the session and get events from the session and unload events from the session. So to get information about events from the history, you need to combine of this request like load, get, and unload. Events load is used to load events into the session for some period. The same as previous request event update units, but you specify also here a period of time. Thanks to event get, we can get detailed information about our event. And events unload is used to unload previous events from the session. For example, it's necessary when you would like to load events from new intervals. Also, the events load method defines the detectors which you would like to get information. You can see the parameter detectors. So let's look through the parameters about this event load events into the session. We have the same item ID, internal unit ID. We will type the parameter which type of time interval you would like to get. For example, it can be history from time to time, or from time to some number of events in the future or in the past, and etc. You can find this information in documentation. Also, you specify time from, time to for intervals, and then in parameter detectors as an array, you specify the list of detectors. The same, you specify type, detectors type like trip, sensors, LS, and etc. And filter one is a sensors ID. For example, for trips detector, this value will be 0. And also, for this request, it can be used some additional parameter, selector. It's optional parameter. This parameter is used to get data instead execution request events get. A little bit later, I will tell you more about this parameter when it's better to specify when it's not necessary. So let's look to our examples. Let's return to our Swagger tool. We can load some request. For example, I copy the same sheet, I think. Copy. We will load some events for unit. For example, for 1 week, I specify time from, time to, you can see, and we will get information about trips. So I specify detectors as type trips, and filter 1 is 0. Let's try to execute. I think this session, no, it's not working with last session ID. Okay, my new session. Okay, let's execute this request. Oh, sorry. Again, let's I get my session from my Wialon. It will be very useful life hack. Okay, return to my request. So you can see that system returns information that 2 trips was detected by this period, and also return update time. It means when the trip detector settings has been updated last time. After we load events trips into our session, we can get these trips, get more information about these trips. Let's try to execute it. I passed my session ID, and you can see I specify this parameter, this request, with the same time period and with the type with the detector type trips. So, and utilization, the same like on events check updates request, Digitalization 3. So I get, and now you can see I get full information about my trip. Let's look here on our JSON parser. Okay. And you can see that I get trips events with array as array with 2 elements. So 2 trips. It means 2 trips. First one and next one. And I get information about when this trip was beginning and when was end. Also the last messages for this trip. Also I get information about mileage in the trips, distance, the value in meters, odometer value from sensor counter, mileage counter, and other information like course, attitude, state that it was trip. State 1 means a trip. And the same for other trips. Let's look into the documentation, get events. Here you can find the description of format for this request. Also here is useful information about parameter digitalization value, which you can use or combine this value as I do. And one of the nice parameter you can see is expression. So when we load trips events or any other event via request events load, we can get full these events or we can get a part of these events. So request events get allows us to get some part of some kind events. For example, we can get the intervals when the speed more than 60 in the trips. Or we can, for example, load events for 1 week and that get events per day, for example. Or we can load events for full day and then get events for each hour if we know that some events happened each hour. So let me show you some examples for this. We will use parameter expression for this. I will show you now the parameter expression. You can see I have my node. Parameter is used instead parameter types. So we specify for selector types, for example, type trips, or we can specify express. So let's check it's correct, I think. So for example, let's get information about trips. Selector. About trips where speed is, I think it's correct, where speed is more than 30, and I specified the same time from interval of my full week. So let's try to execute. So you can see that also the trips, the 2 trips, but you can see that the distance was shorter, so it was a part of trip. And so we get another intervals of the full trips. For example, we can specify the trips with speed less than 1 kilometers per hour, and we can add also the flag, digitalization flag 16 to get information about messages. Yeah, you can see that I will add additional flag value, and the server response contains messages parameter about each messages of the trip. And you can see everywhere the parameter s speed is 0, so less than 1. So, for example, it's useful when you need to get stops, intervals into the trips, or when you would like to get speedings, for example, speedings more than 90 kilometers per hour. So it's about events get requests. I think I describe you full information about basic format for events get and events load request. So we have checked our few examples. Hope that you have a better understanding of how to use the events methods. And now we will move to the second part of the webinar, which we will have more practice. And as I promised, I will tell you which cases you can do everything with one request, or when it's need to execute several requests. And I will show you an example of web application which used the events method. But before that, I will answer your questions from the chat if there any are. So let me check our questions if we have some questions from our chat. John asks, how long does a session stay active? This is to know when we need to generate a new session ID to use in request. The session active is during 5 minutes without any request. So you need to execute any kind of request to Wialon to hold session, or if there is any request execution, the session will be interrupted after 5 minutes after the last request sends. For this one, it's useful to execute avail events request. This request doesn't require some additional parameters, but you can execute this request, for example, every 2 seconds. You can open the console on Wialon interface and look like this request avail events is executed every time, every 2 seconds. We use this request to get updated information, like about trigger notifications, like some changes in settings, like user action, and etc. But if there is nothing happens, this request will be, the response for this request will be empty, and it request helps to hold our session. Also, if you use Wialon JavaScript API and this kind of request will be executed automatically as you connect our JavaScript library, and this method is included in this library and executed every 2 seconds, the same as on Wialon. Okay, so there is not yet questions. Let's go to the second part, and maybe after this we have some new questions after we will look through some more kind example. We have already looked through that you can use different formats, options for receiving events. Now I will briefly summarize this information and show you the examples of formats and their usage. Case 1, first case, we have execute one request, events load. If you need to receive information from only one detector, for example, like trips, you can instantly load and get events for the required period using just one request. To do this, you need to add selector parameter. So let's take a look at examples. In the selector parameter, we can specify, as I showed you before, the entire trips, or we can specify different parameter like value to get a part of trips. As you see, I specified parameter trips, for example, speed more 16, and we get the trip parts where speed was more than 16 60 kilometers per hour. As I showed you before, I execute at first request events load and then events get. But sometimes, for example, for mobile app or web application, it's more convenient to send just one query. So let's look through this query. I will share my screen. Oh, sometimes I need to know. I will share my screen with this request example. Oh, is it possible to share my screen? Oh, okay. Okay, please let's take a moment. Please, I have one more time to log in again to my Swagger inspector. Okay, sometimes to load. Okay, I find the request. Now I will share exactly the request about. Yes, now it's correct. It's everything okay. You can see that I use request events load, and I add item ID the same unit, time period the same time period, and detectors the same detector strips, and then I add additional parameters selector with expression, for example, trips more than 90. So I would like to get speedings more than 19. The same time period and utilization. Let's type more detailed utilization with trip messages. And now also I need to get my session ID. Yes. Yes, I need to get my session ID. This session was interrupt. Everything was interrupt, but it's very easy to log in again and get my session ID. I just use my session ID from Wialon interface because it's a quickly way to get session ID without request token login. Sure, in your app, and it's correctly to first login, to execute login, and then execute other requests. So I will send this request. And now you can see I will copy. Oh, it's more. It's so more information about unit messages. I would like to add these detailed parameters messages because to show you that I will get the messages only with speed more than 19. So just let's change the utilization value to 3. some pop-up. To 3 and send again request. Yeah, it's more short JSON, more convenient to show you information. Okay, so I press, you can see that I get information about trips that we execute events load request, and then I get information in parameter selector about trips detailed information, the same data which I can get via request events get. So okay, oh, this is my Wialon. So you can see that it's possible to get information executing only one request. The next case, which we can to look through, the case 2, means if you need to get data from several different detectors at once, for example, trips and ignition, or trips and fuel sensors, or trips and speed sinks. In this case, it will be not possible to execute just one events load query. First, you need to load events with a list of the required detectors, for example, trips, sensors, and ignition. And then server will load the events into the session, and you can get the number of events from response. And after that, you need to execute the events get query with a selector parameter value for every type of the detector in any order. Let's try an example. Yes, let's try an example. I will show you now these examples. Sorry, let's open my tips notes. Several different events. So we just specify detectors. Here you can see that I specify trips, sensors, ignition, and speed sinks. Time period the same will be used. So let's try to check it. Oh, yes. Events get, we can use the same events get expression and just find them. Events load, events load. So I will use the several detectors. Yeah, I can specify just all parameter. Add new parameter detectors. Detectors, parameter detectors. Okay, and maybe I something missed. Let me check. Oh, before we execute a new events load, let's use unload request to unload previous intervals of requests. To unload previous intervals. So yeah, we get empty answer. So we successfully unload previous events. So now we will load several detectors. Oh, I just copy this array. It will be, I think, useful and quickly. So and paste it here. Detectors. Don't forget the special symbols like waters. Oh, I think it's correct. Okay, let's try to execute. If it will be error, we will try to explore. Yes, it's error because not valid session, not valid session. Okay, copy valid session ID. No, again, I just don't copy, don't delete previous value. Yes, so we get, as you see, the information we load. There are several events type like ignition, sensor values. There's all values are 0. Speedings, we have 1 speedings, and trips, we have 2 trips. And the same states of update time for sensor, trips, speedings, speeding settings, and etc. So after we load several requests, then we can execute the same request events get to get detailed information about each kind of events. For example, about speeding, just you change type, just type speedings. Yes, so you get information about speedings violations, when this violation start, when this violation began, finish it, and also limit of the road, and etc. information. So you can load, for example, this case is useful when you can load all possible kind of events and into the session, into the application, and then after some time the user will press, for example, button to get trips event or speedings, and then you can execute request get in any order. So you can execute first trips to get trips notification, trips events, or execute request to get speedings, and etc. And the next case that we have when we would like to get all detectors, all about all events at once. And for example, you need to load some reporting, like report information, report data for all possible events. In this case, you can use a batch request to execute already to execute combination of events load and events get. For example, it's necessary to get all information about events immediately. For example, as I say, to show a table with data, or for example, to get some data summary, and the number of events is not enough, but we need more detailed information. So for this one, we will use nice, wonderful request query batch method. You can specify query batch method for several units to get information at once, or only for one unit. You just need to specify the unit ID for each events load. I will show you some examples. Let me share my screen. Or I share my screen. So I just have stored request, stored example. So I will copy it. Clear request we use, post. Okay. Parameters. Oh, you can see that request query batch. In previous episodes, I have described about this request in more detail, which format it has, and etc. So you can see that just I list the events request, like first request will be executed events load, I load trips, and then trip sensors and LLS information, and then the second request will be events get to get trips information, and the next one will be events get to get trips information where the speed less than 1, and etc. So let's try to execute. I just again copy my session value. So you can see that we get a full information, a full JSON response for each request in array. Let's me copy that to show you here. Oops. You can see that in response you get an array with 6 elements, as I have executed 6 requests. 6 elements for 6 responses for each my request. First one to load events. You can see the system loads LLS, sensors, trips, events. Then the next one is a request from get response with our trips. The same for another one, trips, LLS, and sensors, and as you see for each event. So already I have got information about all kinds of events. Also, the same query batch request can be used if you need to get information for several units. Let's try to execute it. I also noted some stored parameters. Params. Add params, add new params. So now I will get information about 2 units. First, I specified events load request to get for 1 unit information, to load units, to load trips. And also I specify already selector to get detailed information about events. And then the next request is events unload, that I need to load new interval for new units, new information for new units. And then again I specified request events load to get information for another unit. And you can see that first element shows me information about first unit. Oh, let's just the same. I will copy the result to get more detailed, to get more clear view in JSON parser, to show you what exactly we get from JSON response. So we have 3 elements in response. First one for first unit. Second one is empty. It means that the response for events, for request events unload. And the next one, the last one, is for other unit. So I think it will be useful for you, these examples. And now we can turn an example of web app template that use the events methods. I wrote a small app template using JavaScript, and now I will show you. So we should log in. Okay. And here we have some, for example, vehicle list like vehicle events, our unit list, and we can get report data from last n days, from example last week or any kind of period. I will click to the unit, for example, for this one, and you can see that I get total numbers of my events, like 7 trips, 13 stops, 4 speedings, 2 crashes, 4 fillings, 1 private trip, and 2 delivery trip. Then I can press any other unit. For example, there is not any events for this unit, or I click here and I get another information. And again, for other unit, I get new information. So let's look to my code. As you see, as I said, I use JavaScript, and also I use Wialon JavaScript API, some core methods from JavaScript's Wialon. So for this one, I will use method remove to execute removed API request from my application. And let's look, here the part. When I click for unit, the function getTotal is executed. In this case, I just specify time interval, I specify flex value which I would like to get information, and then I specified events requests, like first request events load, and then the request events get. So to get information about to get detailed information about our trips, sensors, speedings, and etc. Next, I get a result, and I execute all combination of this request via request core batch. So when I click these units, I will get some summary information. Then I can, for example, click to get more detailed information. You can see there is performed a table, some kind of table, where I have information about, for example, trip detailed information, like start, end, trips millage, and, for example, location, start location and location, coordinates, start coordinates and end coordinates of position of the unit. The same for the, for example, stop in trips, and the same, for example, for violations, and the same for delivery and private trips. When I can get, for example, it's about this kind of unit, and when I click for another one unit, for example, this one, there is no any events. Or then I click for another unit and get other result. On the screen, there are a lot of trips. Let's click this one unit. So I get another trips, another stops, and etc. I just add basic some information. Maybe in your cases it needs more complex data. For this one, to get new information, we can look through function getInfo. We can see that here I specify parameters for selector parameter, like full trips, trips with speed less than 1, trips with speed more than 110, and etc. LLS sensors, I specified each sensor's ID because I know which sensor information I need to get. And then also I specify like select array with my selectors, and also I specify params array with my exact request, which will be executed to Wialon. And as you see, I add request in the end. I add request events unload to which allows me to change information. So when I click, for example, to get information from Volvo Awesome, the system load all possible events, also execute events get to get detailed information, and I have obtained already this information. So the system execute request events unload, and after I press other unit like this one, XOR, I will get new information. So it doesn't need to clear data or something to change in my table. I already have, let's say, empty events into the session, and just after click upload new events. So as you can see, I haven't added yet the information, for example, about feelings, and also I haven't added information about packings. Please note that the trip events are calculated only trips, and you can get some stops into trips, but parking intervals you need to calculate on your web application, like a difference between trip starts, trip end, and new trip starts. So if you would like, you can get this example and try to play with them to add, for example, some feelings information about LLS events, or calculate parking, for example, based on registered trips events. And maybe later I will add this example with more new tables to get information about LLS, about parkings, and it also will be available. You can find the link to these scripts and to this example in the description box below on the YouTube video. So I hope that's all I have planned to tell you today. Okay, let's maybe look at the questions. If we have some questions in our chat. If we have some questions in our chat. We have some questions from Facebook. Facebook, our streaming, and our users ask the following questions. What does it mean format LLS2 in the documentation example? Okay, I guess it's about example where we specify detector to get our detailed information. And as I said, for trips, counters, and speeding events, it doesn't need to specify sensor ID, as this functional doesn't have sensor ID, like trip detector doesn't have any sensor ID. But for such kind of events like counters, sensors or ignition, you can specify the certain sensors ID. So if you specify LLS2, you mean that you get information about fuel consumption, theft, and filling from sensor, from fuel level sensor with sensor ID 2. So as you know, the information about filling, theft, and consumption is only possible to get via fuel level sensor. So LLS, it means just simple fuel level sensor. Okay, the next one questions. Can I get any other custom event? as I said at this webinar, the system detects only by 6 basic detectors like trips, feelings, LLS events like feelings, theft and consumption, counters, sensor values, sensors working intervals, ignition working intervals, and speedings. There is not any other custom event, but in some cases it depends on what do you mean about custom event. But it's possible to define this event via sensors. For example, as on my template, we have some crash events. There is not special kind of events in Wialon or something else. I just created a sensor which base it for some parameter like input 3, let's say. And then when something happens with crash, the device sends this input is 1. So the sensor is working. So I create just digital sensors with correct parameter which can show information about crashing, a crashing moment or crashing event. So if it's possible via your device, you can also create different sensors, different custom sensors to get information about any custom event. Okay, let's say if we have, oh, I see one more questions in our YouTube channel also. Eder asks, hi, I have a question. Is there a way to get girlfriend's name or a girlfriend's notification? And if this is possible, is there a way to get the shape of this girlfriend? Thanks. Sure, it's possible to get girlfriend's name and girlfriend's notifications, and possible to get a shape, a list of points of girlfriends, but it's not clear to this team, to our topics events, and you can find this information in documentation section resource and detailed information girlfriends. You can find here also, or you can write to our forum if you have stuck with this request with find information on documentation. You can use, for example, just searching tool into documentation. You can write your questions into the forum, and our developers or I will answer you with more details. Okay, let me check. Maybe I missed some question. John asked us, is there a limit on how many requests can be in batch request? Basically, there is not any limits in batch request because the system executes each commands in order. One command, then next one, and so on. And maybe you can get limits. For example, some of browsers, some of web applications, for some web application is not allowed to sense a big JSON, a lot of parameters at one request. I forgot, maybe if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's about like 500 megabytes for JSON, for JSON into request, maybe something like this. So as I understand, it's quite more, it's more parameters in one request. So I hope you don't. You cannot limit with this, or you cannot face with this request, but you can try, and it depends on your goals, how many units you would like to get information. It's about, for example, hundreds or thousands. So let's try, and if you have some obstacles, please write to us. We will also explore this request. Josh also asks us, can I send data into Excel with automatic chart created? I think you can send data, maybe not to Excel. I'm not so convenient with Excel, with programming related to Excel. But you can get some data from Wialon. For example, you can get the same data from events, and then share this information into other application, or store it in some other database, or provide this information like Excel report, like for example, saved result as Excel file, or something like this. Sure, there is not special embedded methods in Wialon, so you need to have some your applications. You need to develop some your own applications which will combine information from Wialon, will get information from Wialon, and then process this information to other format, to other application, something like that, like this. So maybe you need to develop some, not only web single application page, like I have showed you example previously. You need to develop a full application with backend part also. Okay, I think we have finished time. So the topic of the events methods is quite extensive. It involves a lot of complex calculations. The algorithm runs in the backend, and therefore, of course, we cannot discuss absolutely everything during one webinar. Today, I have tried to explain you some basic information and most important information about events, how you can use them in your work, in your applications. I hope it was useful and today's webinar was helpful. In any case, if you still have questions, please contact us on the forum or send an email. We have a special section on our forum on custom SDK development, which related to our webinars. So I suggest you to write here your questions regarding each topics of our webinars. You also find useful links on the topic in the video description, like documentation, examples, everything that I have discussed today. Also, if you have any suggestions of topics or questions that you would like to hear on our webinars, please let us know. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get notifications every time when we release useful videos. Thank you for your attention. See you soon.